All right, today we're going to be looking at the jointer and what it can do, what it can't do, what you should not use it for, and answer the question, is there a do and a don't for this machine? But really, we're going to use this as an example. Jointers are no good for edge grain. You have a blade moving right here. You can first get it tipped down into the outfeed table. If you're lucky enough to get it across, you're going to have tear out all along here. That is really the only don't. Do not try to use this for end grain. Now, once you get past the do and the don't, there are best practices. These are one of them. Push blocks. These are designed to hold the material down as you push it across the blade, keeping your fingers away from the moving blade. Safety first, no project, nothing is worth injury. Now, if we look at this board and we don't care about these two sides, the two faces, we just care about the edges. You can just run along the edge. The problem is if there is any twist in this at all, or if this is not held perfectly flat, if you can't hold it perfectly flat, it will joint a good straight edge on this, but it won't be perpendicular to the flat side. So the reason this is a best practice is it comes down to waste. You have to look at what you need for your project. Do you need these faces to be the way they are? Or is it more important to have good joints? And it may seem like a no-brainer, but there are projects where the joints aren't part of the project. It's just necessary to make it, such as something for outdoors. If you want to have a gap there, you're not too concerned about the joint being flush, then you may not need this part at all. But if you go across the face first, a much wider surface, that will get this perfectly flat, then it is much easier to hold against your fence as you run it across, giving you a 90-degree angle here on a flat edge. Before we move on to the next type of issue you may have, once you get this face flat, a jointer is not designed to make this face parallel to the top one you just did. That's where a planer comes in. Actually, there are many ways you can do it nowadays, but the jointer will get one face perfectly flat. Then if you run it through the jointer, the jointer will get one face perfectly flat. Then you can run it through a planer, and the planer is designed to get the top piece, the top face, parallel to the bottom face. That's why you don't want to just try and run a twisted or a board that hasn't been faced, meaning you haven't made this flat yet. You don't want to try and run it through a planer as is. Can you get by without a jointer going straight to a planer? Yes. But that involves making a sled so that you can shim up underneath your stock, run it through, and then it will make a flat surface. That flat surface will be flat to what you have said is the bottom, whether that meant it was, twisted and you had to prop one end up or prop both ends up. But if you happen to prop it up at an angle, the planer will make this parallel to the bottom, not to this. Okay, so a planer by default, it doesn't care where you say flat is. It will, if you angle it like that running through a planer, this is, an exaggeration. But if you run it through this like a planer, it's going to be cutting off very little here and all the way through over here in order to get a full cut. If you run it through the joiner first, you're taking off a little bit at a time. You don't have to run it from start to finish. If you have a board that's bowed like that, you can. I'm just holding this with my hand because it's off. Otherwise, I would use the push block. You can run it part of the way until it stops cutting and then lift it off and do it again. Or you can start it in the middle and push the other end. It is best to run it all the way across, but that's a best practice, not a do-don't situation. Now, we'll move on to a board like this, which is a pallet support. And this pallet support is actually twisted pretty bad. No matter what side you put it on, it's twisted. Does that mean it can't be used? Can't be straightened out at all? No. What you may find on something like this is you may want to run it through, find out what edges, like right now, if we push down over here, we're way up over here. This may be a situation where you run it through partially, pick it up, run it through again, just to get it a little better, in a little better condition. And then you can start running it all the way through. If it's too bad, you obviously don't want to use it at all. It's also possible that you have enough of a flat edge on something like this that you can run it along a sled on, say, your table saw or your joiner. Get you a nice straight edge and then bring it back to this or continue on. The bottom line, do you need a jointer? No. You don't need a jointer any more than you need a planer. Don't need a planer any more than you need a table saw or an electric drill. All of these are designed to make things easier and faster and more accurate, with the caveat that you shouldn't try to get a table saw to do a jointer's job. It does work. I have a video where I show how you can do it. But if you want to be able to get all your boards with a flat side really quickly, maybe a flat face and a flat edge really quickly, the jointer will help you do that. That is what it's designed to do. It does it well. This is an entry level, in my opinion, an inexpensive jointer, benchtop joiner. It does not have a long in-feed, out-feed table. It doesn't have a cast iron fence. But this will work for almost everything I need to do. Okay. Now, with the advent of CNCs and planers, you have many options once you get a flat face on how to get the other face flat and parallel. This is not in any way a parallel machine. It one face, one edge. If you do your face, then you do your face, you turn it up, you do your edge, and then you decide to flip it over and do this edge. That will give you parallel edges. You still only have one face left that has not been touched. that would not be a good time to try and push it up against the fence. If this is off by very much, it could very easily tilt on your fence due to the thin nature of the stock. Another case, I've got a long board here. It's pretty big. The problem is this joiner will do this perfectly fine. The problem, however, is that it sticks out way off on that end before this side ever gets to the blade. So I need some sort of support under there, not to push it up or to pull it down, but to, as level as I can get it to this and push down as it's crossing the blade. Otherwise, it'll just lift up. Okay, it does work, but if you're planning on doing longer pieces of stock, you really do need. Best would be a bigger joiner. The next best would be an outfeed table that is perfectly in line with this outfeed table. But those are the basics of best practices. Always keep your fingers away from this blade. Don't try to pull this. It's got a little spot here where you can pull it back. Don't try to pull this back while it's running. Have your stock push it open. As it hits, it's designed to let it glide right on through. For an example, let this snap back before you ever think of doing anything around it. That took off quite a bit. One good thing you can do to see where it's doing what, just get a pencil, mark on it. Same thing you can do with a planer, sandpaper, anything. If you're resurfacing something on a CNC, that works good there too. There we go. All of our pencil mark is gone. And we've got a nice face there that we can now put up against the fence and get our edges. You saw how quickly and easily this was able to go through there. If I had 10 of these that I wanted to joint on this face, I could run all 10 through. Wouldn't take much time at all. If you were to try this on a sled with a table saw, you'd deal with your clamps, clamping it, moving the fence, getting it right where you wanted it, and that would be best done on the edge, not the face. If you were to do this on a planer, again, you're dealing with a sled. You've got to have some way to keep this down on shims, if there's any rocking at all, to get that done. A whole lot more work than just running it across. You make sure your depth isn't going to take too much off. You just run it across until all your pencil marks are gone or until you're happy with the face. And again, that'll get you to where you can do both edges as long as you keep that one side up against the fence. You can move on to the rest of your project. That's where I'll leave it today. Until next time.